Hello, listeners. Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network, and I want to take just a moment to tell you about another show on our podcast network that I co-host called Higher Ed Pulse. Higher Ed Pulse is your weekly spotlight on the latest in higher education marketing and enrollment. From headline news to social posts, insider insights to industry observations, join yours truly and Seth Odell as we share top stories from across the world of higher education. Each bite-sized 15-minute episode is packed with personality and designed to bring what's top of mind to the top of your feed. You can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or just search Higher Ed Pulse wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Breaking Silos, a podcast that shines a light on the incredible partnerships happening across campuses every day. I'm your host, Shane Baglini from Muhlenberg College. Join me every 2 weeks for discussions with some of the best minds in higher ed marketing, enrollment management, student affairs, campus leadership, and more. Breaking Silos is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Today, I am joined by, I have to say, the people I've been most envious of in terms of physical location, Kin Sejpal, Vice President for Marketing and Communications, and Kevin Dyerly, Vice President for Enrollment at University of Redlands in sunny Southern California, which is why I'm jealous, because I'm still here in the Northeast, where we had winter-like spring days the past week. So, Kin and Kevin, thanks so much for joining me.
Glad to be here.
Great to be here on a 79-degree day in Redlands.
Rub it in, Kevin. Rub it in. So today we're talking about unifying marketing and enrollment, which is among the most important relationships on campus. And we're talking about it from the cabinet level. Both of you sit on cabinet. And so it's really being driven from the top down from the university. And so, Ken, I'll start with you and talk a little bit about your sort of vision for partnering with Kevin and his team and how you anticipated that relationship impacting your marketing.
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity, Shane. I mean, this is really one of the most critical relationships that any institution can have, especially a tuition-dependent university like the University of Redlands. Although in my career, I have had the fortune, I've been fortunate to work with enrollment shops that were lesser tuition-dependent, I'd say, but really understanding recruitment marketing has been something that I've enjoyed doing. And the reason I wanted to make sure that we had a great partnership right off the ground is because really the marketing metrics that we are held accountable to are some of those enrollment metrics as well. So I think it really has to start from what is your department or division responsible for, and what are they being measured by, and how then do we structure the group and the priorities in a way to achieve said objectives. So Kevin actually was leading the search for my position, and it was a key component for me to really understand how he works and how he interacts with people. And at the time, he was the CFO, by the way, and he did oversee student financial aid and undergrad enrollment as well. I don't know how he did all of that, but for me, it was really important to see this relationship working in the long run. So getting that time with him when I visited campus, we really got to know each other more than just what meets the eye on your resume. And so for me, it was just like, okay, can I see myself collaborating with this person, this role? I need to, in order to meet our goals for the institution that were already set before I even arrived. They were already part of the job description. I mean, I like to say that there's no Kevin without Kin, because you can't spell Kevin without Kin. And so there is definitely a need for marketing to be part of the enrollment enrollment plans and strategies. And that's where we've been headed for the past year and a half, I'd say. And I think it's only going to strengthen over time.
That's great. Yeah, it's no Kevin without Kin. I love that. So Kevin, from your side of the equation and the enrollment shop at Redlands, what were some of the main objectives for this partnership? Why did you think it was important? And then how did you envision this boosting or helping your causes as well?
Yeah, I give you a little bit of perspective. I've been back at the university in vice president roles for the last dozen or so years, and I've seen us have various models of marketing and communications, from centralized to decentralized, and focus on university communications versus marketing. And to our president's credit, as Ken mentioned, when she arrived, she really quickly said, we've got to shift back, given the landscape coming out of the pandemic and whatnot. We've got to shift back to a focus in on strategic marketing and communications and recruitment marketing. And as Ken mentioned, I had the fortune of serving as the chair of the search committee, and so we had a talented pool of candidates. We were certainly looking for an experienced, strategic marketer, someone, for me, from my perspective, someone who had demonstrated an ability to collaborate with admissions.
Uh-huh.
Ken will probably remember the questions that I asked, and they were really trying to hone in on, okay, what would that collaboration look like with admissions and enrollment? Historically here, there'd been collaboration with a marketing communications team, but at the undergraduate level, it was really mostly focused in on creative publications, and less so thinking about how this generation of students is behaving and responding to marketing, and how to reach them where they are. And so Kin's experience with packaging of programs and understanding the various generations that we are seeking to recruit, and having thoughtful kind of strategies to align with that was very, very attractive. Of course, when we were going through the search, I didn't know that I would necessarily be the one kind of partnering with her as the VP of enrollment. That kind of came about over the course of the next year. And I honestly, the last 8 or so months since we've both been in these respective roles solely have been real fun.
Yeah, and so it's interesting to me that you both, been in the roles for about the same amount of time. So, and it seems like during Kin's sort of search process, this was a priority for the institution, or did that sort of materialize itself after Kin and you, Kevin, got into your current positions?
It was a priority in the search for Ken's position.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, and I served as our vice president for enrollment from 2012 to 20. So I'd done this before, and in that period of time, I saw both models. But we, as the centralized communications team had become more focused in on university communications, and the recruitment marketing had been decentralized, led and stewarded under kind of academic leadership. That's how we were aligned, kind of resource wise. But as I mentioned, when our president arrived in the summer of 2021, quickly realized that it was the time to kind of create some more synergies and to put the uni back in university. And the first step in that was hiring a chief marketing and strategic communications officer. So that was, I would say, that the hiring of Kin and then Kin's reorganization that she did in the first year put us in a position for me, when I stepped back in full time to the vice president for enrollment position, to align actually with some of the work that she had been doing over the previous 12 months.
That's great. That's great. And then Kin, from your standpoint, coming into that role, was it helpful to sort of have that directive right away that said, this is where we need to get?
Yeah, I mean, any type of restructure comes with some pain points, right? And, there is, so that process of getting to what that could look like can be a long, drawn out process. But to know that from the get go that we are going to centralize the marketing operations that were decentralized prior to my arrival. And there was an audit done that the president commissioned. Again, kudos to her for getting ahead of that, that recommended, yeah, we need to kind of bring these disparate groups together, again, for no ill intent, except, that it was the way it was, but it was time for us to really function as one university. And it started with marketing. I think I was sort of the guinea pig for that in some ways, and it was interesting to work through that. So previously they were generalists and their area of specialty was that school, except now we wanted to do it as specialists with their breadth of scope covering all schools and colleges. So, it was beneficial to have the idea of centralization already adopted, but what that looked like was something that I had to work through. So this whole functional versus beat specific was something that I conceptualized as opportunities became available. There was some attrition with new leadership, which tends to happen. So that gave some opportunity to rethink how I wanted to structure this organization, which was really, not every school needs their own person to do five things. We need five people to do one thing. So that was a bit of a process, but once we got there, and then enrollment got there after Kevin assumed his VP of enrollment role, we found a rhythm, and things, the partnership is going really well.
Yeah, it sounds like you're on a great sort of trajectory here from everything I'm hearing.
Shane, maybe just to provide an example of something we've been working on recently, we have transfer students that enroll in 3 different schools here. And some of them are looking for traditional residential programs. Others are finishing their degree in a school of business or school of education. And when we were decentralized, we had efforts, both boots on the ground from the recruitment enrollment side, and then marketing and communications efforts that were sitting in 3 different shops or 3 different units. So you could actually have, I could have had a recruiter or 2 different recruiters or 3 different recruiters at a college fair trying to recruit students into their particular programs. Now, as Ken and I have kind of reshaped the teams and have everyone thinking kind of in a centralized fashion, we have a much stronger story to tell to prospective transfer students about the breadth and depths of opportunities depending on who they are, what their needs are, as opposed to in this kind of bifurcated way. So that's one of the opportunities that we're taking advantage of through these organizational restructures.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it segues well to the next topic I want to chat about here, which is assessment. And understanding that it's still relatively early in the process here, but can you talk about ways that you plan to sort of know how you've been successful in this process and sort of unifying these efforts? Kevin, I'll start with you first.
Well, if you ask the VP of enrollment first, of course I'm going to go to, okay, what's the funnel look like, right? And I think Ken will probably speak to some good indicators that feed into the funnel. But as we look at fall 2024, we're up 10% in applications to the university across all programs, and each of our 4 schools is up year over year in applications. It's the first time all 4 schools are up for a fall start term since before the pandemic. Those are some encouraging signs and lead indicators. One graduate campaign, Ken will talk to some of the additional resources that are available to go towards that campaign, but thinking about all graduate programs and letting the market kind of tell us a little bit where that interest is, and being able to help kind of fuel that and optimize, graduate and student enrollment is another kind of lead indicator for us.
Yeah, just on that point, that we had school specific, well, I would say area of study specific campaigns in the market last year when I started And we started to kind of, unify the agency, the paid media purchase, some of those basics that I feel like everybody should be doing by now. But at the same time, we were, for especially graduate recruitment, which I know you have a soft corner for, Shane, but we had different campaigns under a broader campaign running, whether it's for business or education or some of these disciplines. And then once the centralization happened, and once, Kevin brought in, all the graduate enrollment staff under one area, one of the things that came from them was, what if we just stop doing that by field of study? I mean, maybe we have a little bit of that still, but really talk about our master's programs. We predominantly masters, we have a handful of doctorates as well, but how about we do that and let the market kind of tell us what they're interested in? That's the type of outcome that comes with this partnership, because as we were sharing some of the results of the media buys and the advertising, it was becoming more and more apparent that, we couldn't force something down other people's throats. Like, people needed the autonomy to really tell us what they wanted. And listening to the market, we had the conversations internally, and we launched this one grad campaign idea. Similarly, we launched a university level campaign. We didn't have one that just talked about the University of Redlands. It was all about its schools. It was all about its areas of study. It was all about some mini campaigns, I would say, across initiatives and such. And the results showed that when we drove the university campaign and launched that we had better results to those areas of study at a lower cost than those areas of study specific campaigns. And so all of these data kind of pointed us to this idea that, one, there's power in the brand, and two, that the more we unify, the better results we'll see. And, enrollment and marketing are part of every reporting meeting for marketing. We also review data for enrollment every week. So we are trying to understand both sides on an ongoing basis. I mean, perhaps maybe more meetings than we have time in the day for, but enrollment understands how marketing is performing and driving success there. And marketing is understanding where enrollment is doing well and where enrollment might not be doing well, so we can collectively close those gaps. So, yeah, I mean, we can talk about successes around process, around outcomes, around just cost efficiencies, about just how working with enrollment has really allowed us to be more efficient in our spending, because we have kind of prioritized where it is that we want to focus. And so when enrollment complements those same efforts with recruitment activities and outreach, and we complement that with awareness building and advertising, we know we have that 1-2 punch strategy kind of going the same direction.
That's a fascinating example, kind of letting potential students self-select into programs versus, marketing the programs to them. I love that. And that's, those are the kind of things that come out of these partnerships, which obviously illustrates their importance. So Ken, for people not in cabinet level positions, especially marketers or, people aspiring to cabinet level positions, why is it important for marketers to either maintain a good relationship if it's already there with enrollment, or really work to build that and break that silo to start to work more closely together if it's not there?
Hey, it's Mallory. Exciting news. I'm hosting the Engage Summit in Raleigh on June 25th and 26th, and I'd love to meet you there. Together, we'll dive into the mind of the modern student, what fires them up, how they interact, and what they expect in today's digital age, and how tools like AI help put them in the driver's seat of their education. We have some terrific speakers, including our closing keynote, New York Times best-selling author Jeff Selingo. Sessions will dig into practical ideas and innovative strategies to get your team more student-centered and ready to adopt AI. And many of your favorite Enrollify hosts are presenting too, like Jamie Hunt, Jenny Lee Fowler, and Brian Gross. Use the discount code Enrollify50 for an extra $50 off your registration. Learn more and register at engage.element451.com. We can't wait to see you there.
Yeah, well, first of all, I would always advocate that this role and this function be a cabinet
Yes.
level position. That aside, I do think that it's like a good marriage. I think you just have to have the the relationship, go through its ups and downs, but also go through that, what is that rhythm that you are trying to achieve in order to ensure like the family is successful, right? And whatever that can be defined as. So, even it's important more so now than ever, right? If you're not differentiating, for instance, from marketing perspective, students and others, influencers are not going to pay attention to you. So the idea of just shaping the brand and continuing to advance that narrative about what makes you better, different, and special, needs to continue to come through not only in marketing, but if I may call enrollment the sales function, that there has to be that consistency of messaging. And so it's the idea of marketing is more mass, and then enrollment is more one to one. And then if we don't have that, if we have that disconnect between what we are saying at a mass scale, with what we are saying at a more intimate level when students kind of go through the funnel, then it's it's pretty jarring. It feels disconnected. It feels like, okay, why should I still go to this institution? And there is that gap in understanding. And then you pick up on those things in the marketplace too. Like we did a brand health survey just to kind of see what is the perception of students, and how does that differ from the reality of the situation. And we want to constantly ensure that we are being honest and authentic, and that in our communications, whether it's mass advertising or enrollment comm flows that we partner on as well, that we have this unifying thread. We have these 5 pillars that we've aligned on as to why a student will consider University of Redlands. So we keep harkening back to those no matter what channel or tactic we use. And enrollment has those same pillars as part of their toolkit as they interact with students and families. So to me, it's marketing 101. You basically say and do what students are expecting and what is true to you, who you are, but you make sure that that is a consistent thread all the way through.
We always talk about differentiation, and I don't know that schools focus enough on what is true to them. That's the differentiator in a lot of students' minds, is what does this school actually stand for and believe in, and what's my experience going to be like. So I love that. And then Kevin, for enrollment leaders, either in cabinet or not, who might be in a situation where marketing is decentralized, or there's an embedded sort of marketing team outside of the central Marcom unit. How can centralizing those efforts, or at least collaborating more closely, ultimately help enrollment efforts?
First and foremost, it helps give clear line of sight. When you're working in a decentralized fashion, it's a natural tendency to just be looking at what's right in front of you, and not necessarily having a great appreciation or a sense for emerging trends or opportunities that sit in other areas of the organization. So I feel like Ken and I are positioned now to have clearer line of sight on what's working well. Where do you put the foot on the gas? Where are some potential challenges or whatnot? How do you devote time and resources there, and how do you prioritize? Another obvious piece is just the synergies, right? So, and I think both of us have already alluded to this, but Graduate student enrollment for at the University of Redlands has always been a significant piece of our enrollment, and it's a great opportunity for us. And yet, we don't always know where the market is going to respond on that. And when you're able to centralize and focus in on some of those graduate messages that Kim was alluding to, you let the students tell us where the interest and the demand is, and then kind of react and respond accordingly. You're a much more efficient and effective way to do so in a centralized fashion. As Ken mentioned, marketing and enrollment go hand in hand. You can't have success with one without the other. And the more that those teams see themselves as a team, as opposed to distinct 2 teams or 4 teams, if you're decentralized, it helps build trust. Ken and I spend a lot of time together on a weekly basis, and we spend a lot of time together with our leadership groups, to where I think that collaboration and that camaraderie and that spirit. We had a Friday afternoon meeting 10 days ago. It was a little loopy, but it was fun, right? Because it didn't feel like marketing and admissions. It felt like, this was our team meeting of the week, and we can get some serious work done, still chewing through data and understanding trends and insights and planning for some tactics and strategies to respond to FAFSA challenges and whatnot. But there's a level of trust that has been developed there by us being kind of squarely focused in a centralized way that I think was a little more challenging a few years ago.
That's great. A loopy meeting at this time of the year, I think, is pretty normal, actually.
We don't typically meet Friday afternoons at 4:00, but for scheduling purposes, it occurred at that time that week.
Yeah, especially on a Friday. So, nothing is easy in higher ed, right? Sometimes we are our own worst enemy in terms of progress. So things like this often encounter roadblocks. Can you speak to some of that? And Ken, we'll start with marketing. Some of the roadblocks, if any, or challenges that you encountered, and how did you overcome those?
When I came on, there was already this expectation of centralization, and I just had to figure out what that looked like. But, the cycle was not waiting for me to figure that out, right? And we still had the schools and their marketing directors that were assigned to the said schools, figuring out how those positions would change and evolve and really become more functional experts. So there was a little bit of the timing piece here at play, because again, enrollment was decentralized at that time, but marketing started to centralize. So there was a little bit of like, okay, how do we best work with enrollment? How do we best work with academics in a way that we are being of service, but we also being strategic? So once that part got, once we got over that hump a little bit and started centralizing some of our marketing campaigns and such, and then Kevin assumed the role of overseeing enrollment, that partnership started to smooth out, in the sense of like, we felt like we had one unified focus of what it is that we're working towards. Even though we knew we were working towards recruitment marketing, there's so many ways that can be prioritized, correct? And so depending on who you talk to, it's like, okay, no, we need more transfer students here, or our funnel here is not looking great, or our demographics from these populations needs. So that felt a little bit disconnected and disjointed, where everyone was trying to meet their own individual area goals, and rightly so. But that was kind of like, okay, how does marketing then prioritize that? So that's what I would say was, in my short time here, I'm sure more will come when it comes to um, roadblocks and things that we have to work through. One of the things that we're working through right now, which is not a roadblock, but just certainly new territory for us, is as we are acquiring other institutions, and keeping their marketing and enrollment goals in mind, and how do we navigate that while they are functioning a little independently. So that's been something that we are working through, and that's been a bit of a, not challenge, but certainly something that there's no playbook for, and we're definitely like learning as we go.
Yeah, and shameless plug, listen to Kin's mergers and acquisitions series on the Higher Ed Pulse.
Thanks.
And then Kevin, from your side of things, either within your team or institutionally, especially coming into a new role overseeing enrollment, what have been some of the challenges from your side of the fence?
The initial one last year was as we were centralizing marketing and reallocating some human resources. So we had recruitment communications folks sitting in the respective enrollment units. And Ken and I kind of agreed that that probably should be centralized, right, for the reasons that we've just stated. But honestly, trying to navigate that with my team during some transitions of, okay, how do we still ensure that the work is getting done as we're reallocating resources, and Kim was building out her team. Those are the growing pains you have in any kind of organizational change. The first year was kind of, I think Ken's first year is like stabilize. Year two, organize a bit, and then year three, as we both were talking about, is optimized. And I think where we are right now is I'm back in this role for the first time in a while. Ken's still relatively new, so we're looking at things that have been done and saying, okay, what's working well? How do we refine? Maybe we want to do this differently. And we have to continually assess with our teams, what should we fix or refine right away, and what should we put in the parking lot for now, because we can't do it all at once. And it's that collective recognition of, okay, this is a good idea, but in this particular year, we're going to refine these pieces, and we're going to set this aside over here, and then in our forthcoming year, we'll have a little bit more time to plan and optimize, with a little bit more strategic focus and a little bit less, tactical focus. So I see that as both a challenge and an opportunity, and I think that's part of what we're both looking forward to in the coming year.
Yeah, definitely growing, not pains, but growing, challenges and trying to get up to speed. And like Ken, you mentioned, the cycle doesn't wait for anybody. So trying to do that on the fly is definitely a challenge. So as we wrap up here, real quickly from both of you, and Kevin, I'll start with you. During your time at Redlands, how have you seen partnerships like this sort of impact and enhance the culture of collaboration at the university?
As far as a success for kind of university culture, I think I'll draw on an example from a couple months ago that we had. So in my memory here, in the last 12 years of tenure, I can't think of another time where we actually had, believe it or not, one preview night for all graduate programs across the university. And that could be another podcast for why that is. This was a grad programs preview night. We had over 200 attendees. The provost gave a welcome. Every academic dean and many department or program chairs were present. We had representation from just about every student services team on campus, from career and professional development to financial aid to academic support and advising. And the room on campus was full. We had prospective communication sciences and disorder students that drove from Phoenix, Arizona to attend, with potential students considering an MBA online and everything in between. And it was inspiring. It was inspiring for me. It was inspiring for others, having talked with other colleagues, to see a full room, a packed house, and to see potential graduate students from all across campus actually interacting with one another. That didn't happen in the past when we were doing it in a much more siloed way. And marketing communications played a vital role in planning for, executing, and promoting that event and the success of the attendance that we had that night. In talking with our provost later that evening, she too was so jazzed by the synergies that it helped reshape and rethink how our graduate program orientation will be in September. So we'll take a model that we did there and apply that for how we onboard and welcome graduate students in September to the university. So I think it had a lasting impact on kind of the culture for a number of offices on campus.
I would echo that culture piece. I mean, I think, again, starting with the leadership on the top, who has really, our president, who has really kind of set the stage for how unified we need to be across all functions, and how our strategic plan will be sort of the guiding force for everything we do. I think right from there to our partnerships that we have created, especially with enrollment and marketing. I know the impact, for instance, it's had on the team morale too, that Kevin alluded to as well. My team is pretty new, and they're either new in terms of the tenure or newly reimagined roles. And I think just for them to be able to be part of something that is driving institutional success in a tangible way, and to be able to see that, I think has been very, very motivating for them. Uh, if I am understanding their feelings right now, I think they're definitely busy. They definitely have a lot to do. I mean, I think that's the case everywhere, especially this time of year. But I do think that they're energized by the ways in which we continue to operate with Kevin's team and other teams in general. About here's what we are trying to focus on now. Be creative, you be strategic, be measurement driven, and go. And like they have been pining for that. I mean, pining might be a strong but they've been, I mean, that's when I came here on my on campus interviews, some of them really did articulate that they just need direction. And I think now we, with Kevin's partnership, and we know exactly, like, okay, this is the season for yield, and this is where we will focus on, and here are the pain points that our families are facing with FAFSA and this and that, and so here's how we're going to approach it now. Or here's how we think we should approach it, what do you think? And so they feel part of the solution, not just the people that are implementing said solutions.
Yeah, that's great. And this is why I was excited to have this conversation from the cabinet level, and people having direction is so important. So I really appreciate both of your time and your insights as somebody that aspires to be at that cabinet level. It's, I hope this is helpful for people listening, kind of understanding the importance of these partnerships. So thank you both for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Breaking Silos is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry best as your host. Learn from Dave Builds, Jenny Lee Fowler, Eddie Francis, and many more of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.